It's Bradley the Singing Chef, and I am coming to you today with one of my favorite go-to recipes for several reasons. But one, you can make a bulk batch of this and it can be in so many different recipes throughout the week. In fact, I'm going to show you the basics of creating this, but then I'm going to do a series of smaller videos showing you different ways that you can put this together in different dishes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you will see how versatile this dish is. Now, what do I call this dish? I call it Hoppin Cowboy Caviar. The reason I call it that is because you've probably heard of Cowboy Caviar. It's like this salad meets relish meets salsa dish that you've probably seen at parties before. But mine's a little bit different than others that I've seen, and I think you are going to love it, combining fresh ingredients and some canned ingredients along the way. Now the first thing we need for this salad meets appetizer salsa is a dressing, okay? And so that's what we're gonna start on now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna take some fresh limes, okay? And I'm gonna roll these limes to get the juice going in them. But before I cut it, I need the zest of these limes. I'm gonna need probably about, I don't know, 2 to 3 tablespoons of lime juice. That's about, I'd say, 3 to 4 limes, because limes are pretty small. So I'm gonna take my microplane zester here, take some zest off of each lime. Get as much as you can. There's a ton of flavor in citrus zest, and sometimes it just gets thrown away, but I'm all about some flavor. So I'm going to zest several of these limes to get that flavor in my dressing bowl. Perfect. One more. I'm going to zest 3 of them in juice 4. The juice is as important because it's going to provide quite a bit of the liquid that's in the dressing that's going to get poured over this dish. Tap, 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 make sure there's not any leftovers in the back, and scrape that into my dressing bowl. All right, that is all I need that microphone for. So, now you may have seen me in previous videos juicing lemons or limes, but the easiest way that I find to do it is actually utilizing your knife, as long as you're really, really careful. You can get a juicer and squeeze and have all that, but I just don't have the room for that many gadgets in my kitchen, to be honest. So my good old chopping knife actually helps. What I do is I insert that into the center of the citrus fruit carefully, not to pierce the other side where your hand is, and then I just squeeze top side and hold that side up, the cut side up, so that you catch any seeds. There aren't as many seeds in limes as there are in lemons, so it's not nearly as much of a big deal. And I do that with all the halves. Get as much of that juice out, because like I said, we want a few tablespoons. What's that? Insert and squeeze. Insert and squeeze. Like I said, be careful, because your hand is pretty close to that blade, especially on a smaller lime. It's the third one, and it gets so much juice out really quickly. The speed of that technique is what I like, because I feel like it takes forever with like a reaming juicer to get as much juice as you want out of these. All right, last lime. Now, to this lime juice, we are going to add some minced garlic. And I've minced this garlic about as fine as my little hands can do it, because raw garlic's pretty potent. And so you want it to be as teeny tiny as you can get. I'll show you. Like, the light's kind of glaring there, but you may not be able to see it, but it's like the smallest mince that I could get on this garlic. And this garlic is only 1 clove. You know I'm a fan of garlic and onions in dishes, but I find both those flavors can be a little bit overpowering to all the other flavor that's happening. So that 1 minced garlic goes in. To that, we are going to add 1/3 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And a splash for good luck. Then I am going to have 2 to 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. 1, 2, about a half of red wine vinegar. Then to that, I am also going to add 2 teaspoons of just plain old white sugar to add a little sweetness into our dressing. Finally, I'm going to season that with some salt and some ground black pepper. And that is it for our really simple dressing. I'm just going to whisk all that goodness together. Give it a taste, see how we did. Ooh, yeah, that's gonna be great. There's a lot of lime juice. And in fact, I think I need a little bit more oil just for consistency's sake. So I'm gonna drizzle in a little bit more of that. And I think I want another hit of black pepper. It's best as a home cook, just as well as chefs in restaurants, to taste as you go. You may have to adjust recipes along to see how you like it. All right, that's my dressing. I'm just gonna set that to the side while I assemble my Hoppin Cowboy Caviar. Yippee-ki-yay. All right, so in this ginormous bowl, that's where I'm gonna put all of my ingredients, so that can go there. Now I mentioned earlier that the garlic is a really strong flavor. Some Cowboy Caviar recipes that you may see online will call for onion, like red onion, sweet Vidalia onion. I am not a huge raw onion fan in this dish because it's so strong. I feel like it overpowers, especially if you let it sit in your fridge overnight. The next day when you want to use it for something else, all of a sudden the onion has like blown up. So instead of that, I'm going to use its mild cousin, the shallot. Now I'm going to peel and mince the shallot just the same way that I would an onion. But I thought I'd show that to you. So I'm going to chop off the long end, toss that, set that on that flatten we just created and slice directly through the root end of the shallot, lengthwise, like that, which allows me to peel that outer portion. Shallots, like I said, they're onion's milder cousin, and so I love the, like I said, very mild flavor of onion that this still gives the dish. And I find that over time, shallots don't bloom as heavily as onions will. So again, bonus for using the shallot. I'm going to use 2 shallots because shallots are pretty small. You'll find those in your produce department over where you'll find the rest of the onions, but they're typically like in smaller bags, like on the end cap of that aisle where the onions are. So grab those. They go, shallots, I like them in a lot of sauces and stuff like that too. But for this dish, it's definitely preferable to an onion. So from there, nature's already done a lot of the work. It's pretty small. So all I really need to do is slice vertically down the length of the shallot to the root, but not through the root. That gives me something to hold on to while I mince across, creating this tiny mince shallot. Toss away the root. Set that to the side. Same process, lengthwise to the root and across. Good. Mince all the way down to the root. All right, second shallot I've already peeled, so all I gotta do is chop it. Mince through. You have some big chunks, just run your knife through it again. Nothing wrong with going through twice. Throw away that root. Last half, lengthwise, and mince across. Woo. My bowl and my olive oil are getting to know each other over there, clanging, making some music. All right, so that is 2 shallots that will go into my big mixing bowl. Beautiful. The other thing that I love about this dish is it is gorgeous. Like the colors that are through this dish, I mean, it's beautiful on the plate. I can't wait for you to see it when it is finished. All right, so first color we're gonna work with is red. I'm gonna do several different peppers in this dish, okay? The first one is a red bell pepper. And I'm just going to show you again how to dispatch that. What I do is I cut around the full length to the stem and pull apart, okay? That leaves one side pretty clean and the other side with the heart of it where all the seeds are, and you're just going to grab that out in the center, pull it out, and throw it in your garbage. I'm also going to remove these white membranes that are on the inside and any residual seeds because I don't want those. So carefully remove these white membrane pieces with your knife or just rip them out with your hand. God gave you utensils, feel free to use them, which is what I'm going to do with the second one. This is far easier than the knife in my opinion. Just pull all that membrane and seeds out. And then when I am chopping peppers of any sort, I find that it's easier rather than this slick skin side to actually chop into the flesh of the inside of the pepper as you are chopping, because this tends to, the slick side, your knife can slip. That's danger city, so I just avoid it at all costs. I'm going to want my bell peppers to be about the same size, and it's just a basic chop. Again, I'm just trying to meet the same mouth texture for all the pieces of the puzzle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to go slice the length into pretty small, thin slices of the red bell pepper. And then once I have all of those sort of batons, I'm going to turn those 90 degrees so that they are now facing horizontal on my board. And just run my knife through to, I don't know, 1/4 to 1/2 inch dice on these so that they're all pretty consistent. Great, so that is 1/2. Mixing bowl over. I know I keep like saying how much I love this dish, but there's another reason, a third reason, other than the colors and the flavor and the versatility, is that it is pretty much a chop and drop recipe. Like, we made a dressing and everything else is just a bunch of chopping and then dumping things in a bowl, mixing it with that dressing, and you are good to go, which I think is a pretty fast and easy way of cooking. There are really so many ways. If you guys have followed me on Facebook as my friend, you may have seen in the past I've made this dish before and shown a bunch of different ways of using it. Like I said, I'm going to try to do some shorter videos that take this batch of Hoppin Cowboy Caviar and put it in all of those dishes so that you can kind of see the construct of it and just how versatile the dish is. All right, so that's one whole red bell pepper. I also, for the sake of color, have a yellow bell pepper already chopped, so that can go in my bowl. Clean up a little bit here. Then, you may have seen this too in recipes in the past. Anytime anything calls for a green bell peppers are honestly my least favorite bell pepper. I don't love the flavor of them, and I love injecting flavor any opportunity in any recipe. So, most of the time when it calls for a green bell pepper, I will use a poblano. It is also green, it is also a pepper. And it has just the tiniest amount of mild heat raw. Cooked, heat blooms a little bit in it, but raw, it's pretty mild as far as heat goes. And I just cut this the exact same way as I did the red one. Cut around the length of the pepper to the root, pull apart, exposing the heart on one side and maybe a few things of seeds on the opposite. Pull that heart of seeds and stem out, throw that in your garbage bowl. Great. And then same process, lengthwise through the pepper. Turn to the side and dice. Again, through that flesh side is far easier than that slick side of the poblano. So, I don't know, just a helpful hint to keep your fingers safe. They're important, so I want to take care of them. All right, that's 1/2 of the poblano. And let's do this other one. Lengthwise through. The recipe's like a lesson and actually really good practice for chopping, dicing. So I encourage you to try this one, if for no other reason, just to practice your knife skills. I don't claim to have like super amazing knife skills, but the more I do chop and dice and mince and chiffonade and all those things, the better I get at it, the faster I get at it. It doesn't become nearly a cumbersome task when I see a recipe that says this diced or that diced. Alrighty, so that's 1 poblano pepper into the mix as well. Last pepper is a jalapeno pepper, okay? And I'm gonna save it until the end of my mixing because I'm gonna add it to taste. Jalapeno has a lot more heat than any of these other peppers, and I don't want this to blow out the flavor of everything. I have an entire jalapeno that I have minced incredibly finely. You may be able to see how tiny those little pieces are. And I'm gonna sort of treat it like it's another seasoning to the dish by adding it at the end a little bit at a time to see if I in fact need the entire jalapeno. So I'm just gonna make that suggestion for you based on your comfort with heat. You may be like, oh, I love it, toss it in. But I'm just gonna be a little bit more careful and see if I can build the flavor as I go. So that jalapeno I'm gonna keep to the side. All right, last fresh ingredient we're gonna add are some tomatoes. Now you can use any kind of tomato you want. Some recipes I've seen call for baby tomatoes. I have shown you a hack, I think, in previous recipes of where you can take 2 Tupperware lids and slice directly through halves of those baby tomatoes. That makes for quick prep work to toss that right in the bowl. You can certainly do that. I think those even halves of baby tomatoes are bigger than my chop on my other veggies. So I like to get a little bit better of a dice. You can also use a regular large tomato. It just, to me, it has so much juice inside that you lose a lot of it. And especially as it sits over time, I don't think you continue to get the structure of a tomato that you need for the dish. Just my opinion. So I choose to use Roma tomatoes. There is far more flesh than juice in a Roma tomato, and so I find that they hold up better structure in this dish. And I just so happen to have picked up some fresh Roma tomatoes at St. Luke's Food Distribution for the Arts that they have on Tuesday. So thank you, St. Luke's, for that. All right, here's how I'm going to dispatch these. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slice them in half vertically, kind of like we did with those peppers, all the way through, okay? Then I'm going to, just like a pepper, go almost to the root end with my knife, vertically the length, about 4 or 5 times into the tomato, and dice across. It's exactly the same practice that we just did earlier on those peppers. Now remember on the peppers I told you you may want to go flesh side first. Same thing with the tomato. Now that I've got the lengthwise cut, I'm going to flip over to the other side, even though it's the rounded side, and just rock my knife through because it goes through the flesh far easier than it goes through the peel. The root end you're just going to toss away and it leaves you with a beautiful little dice of tomatoes. So flesh side down for your vertical. Chop. Turn it over, flesh side up to rock your knife through with an easy dice. And I'm going to use 2 of these Roma tomatoes in my Hoppin Cowboy Caviar, because one of my secret ingredients later comes back to some tomatoes, so you don't need a ton. All right, 1 more tomato, lengthwise through the entire thing, half, vertical to the root, flip it over, rock your knife through for a quick and easy dice. 1 more half. Turn over. Brilliant. And just like that, you've got easy diced tomatoes. I had one lingering on the back side of my knife that I had to chop through. But other than that, we are good to go. All right, still hanging on to my jalapeno, but other than that, all the fresh ingredients are in the bowl, okay? Now is when it really becomes the easiest part of the recipe. We are going to use some canned ingredients. Canned ingredients get a bad rap. However, most canned ingredients are canned when they are at their peak of flavor in their both cooking process or growing process, and so they're really, really good. The bad thing about them is that they are covered in a liquid that has tons of preservatives so that they will stay in that can for you to use at a way later date than they were put in the can. So all I do with canned ingredients when I'm putting them in this dish is I rinse them very thoroughly in a colander so that I get all of that preservative goop off of them, and I'm just left with the actual vegetables to use. And I'm going to use 4 of them. Okay, the first one I'm going to put in is some corn niblets, not creamed corn. That's a whole other thing. All right, and you never want that from a can. Look at my other recipe for creamed corn. That's the way to have creamed corn. This whole can goes into the bowl. Easy, easy, easy. All right, next, a can of black beans. Again, rinse them thoroughly and you're just left with this versus a soupy mess. Those also go into your bowl. Next, just for some bulk and body to this dish, and a little bit of added protein, I like adding garbanzo beans. Not a lot of Cowboy Caviar recipes call for this ingredient, but I like it just because it gives some more body to the dish. Entire can of chickpeas or garbanzo beans, rinsed off completely, into the bowl. The bowl's getting full, y'all. All right, here's my secret ingredient. I don't know if you've ever heard of a dish called Hoppin John or not, but Hoppin John is a black-eyed pea dish that is combined with tomatoes, onions, and peppers. And you can find it in your canned vegetable section, okay? So that's what I have here. A lot of recipes call for black-eyed peas, but I love Hoppin John so much that I was like, ooh, I can add this, and it's another layer of flavor with those onions and the peppers and the tomatoes added to the black-eyed peas. Check it out. So that's out of the can after I've rinsed it off, okay? There was some residual flavor for sure in the can and the sauce that's around them. However, those black-eyed peas have already soaked up enough of that flavor that you're still good after you rinse them, okay? So, because I still want the same consistency, I don't want the preservative liquid to be in the mix with this. All right, so that's the hoppin' part of the Hoppin Cowboy Caviar. Can of Hoppin' John rinsed into the bowl. All right, now I'm gonna toss this before I even get the dressing in the mix, just to make sure I pull up the shallots and peppers that are in the bottom to join hands with those canned ingredients at the top. Oh my gosh, this looks beautiful. All right, now I'm gonna go in with my jalapeno, and I'm gonna add, I don't know, what looks like maybe a fourth to a half of the jalapeno first before I go full tilt with it. Mix that in. This is quite a big batch, so it may be able to handle the entire jalapeno, but I don't want to chance it, so I'm just adding half the jalapeno right now. And now it's dressing time. That dressing that we made earlier with the olive oil and the red wine vinegar. The garlic has had time to get in there and do its thing. A little bit of sugar for sweetness. And we are going to pour that dressing all over this mixture. Get all of it. Don't leave anything. All right. Now, get in there again underneath, pull up from the bottom to toss everything in that awesome, tangy, lime-filled, garlicky dressing. All right. Now, spoon over here to taste things. Let's see how we did. Just gonna get a big spoonful. Yeah, needs a couple of things. It for sure needs some more jalapeno in my opinion, just based on that one bite. So I'm gonna add, I think, the rest of that one. So one small jalapeno for this bulk of a recipe might do just fine. It wasn't too hot to my taste. I also think this needs some more salt. It's a big batch, so it will take quite a bit. And some more black pepper. And maybe we are good. Let's see how that does. Now that I've added that. All right. New spoon. Yes. That hit of salt did it. I love it. It's perfect. So, I promised you several recipes with this, but today is the most basic way that you can have this glorious Hoppin Cowboy Caviar. Grab you some tortilla chips, and then just gonna pour some of this mixture all over these chips. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. Last but not least, I'm gonna take some cilantro, tear up some leaves, and put that over my Cowboy Caviar. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. Look at that. All those colors, it's gorgeous. All right, now, I gotta taste a little bit. Oh, come on. It's so good. And you can make a meal out of this alone, for sure. The cilantro actually makes it pop. So now that I've tasted it with that, actually I'm gonna put some in the bowl. So I'm gonna chop up a little bit of last minute cilantro. Again, this is one of those things that's optional. Some people are averse to cilantro, they're not a big fan. I'm only gonna put maybe about 1/4 cup of chopped cilantro in. It was fine without it, but I love that flavor. And I think it's gonna make that lime juice just zing in the mix. So I'm gonna pop that in, stir that all around. I hope you will try this recipe. Like I said, I'm gonna film a few videos with some recipes that you can utilize this single dish so many ways. Thank you so much for spending your time in the kitchen with me today on Bradley the Singing Chef. I hope you'll subscribe to this YouTube channel, like and share these videos with your friends, and I hope you eat well. Love always.